Hello and welcome to the Tennis Podcast on day 13 of the US Open. Unlucky for some, definitely felt unlucky for us when we were being woken up by drilling at 9 a.m. this morning after getting to bed at 5. Thank you, New York City. But people bounce back.
Yes.
And here we are in our favourite media garden on quite a clammy night in New York City. It is shortly after 11 p.m. and the men's singles final lineup is now set. And you'll be shocked, I tell you, shocked to hear that it's going to be the best two players in the world, Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz, tussling for the final major title of the season come Sunday. The final was set up today by a straight sets victory for Carlos Alcaraz over Novak Djokovic and a 4-set win for Jannik Sinner over Canada's Felix Auger-Aliassime. That match having finished on the Arthur Ashe Stadium just behind us here only moments ago. The crowds are streaming away as we speak. And let's start with the match that everybody thought, maybe even assumed, would be the match of the day. Carlos Alcaraz beating Novak Djokovic 6-4, 7-6, 6-2 to reach a second US Open final. David, how far was this from the match we hoped it would be?
Yeah, I think it was quite far. I don't think it was the highest quality match at all. I actually think it was the worst performance that Carlos Alcaraz has put in all week. That's not really surprising because it takes two players to produce a performance, and the things that Novak Djokovic is able to do are things that nobody else Carlos Alcaraz played are able to do. That having been said, the very moment that Alcaraz came out onto the court and began the knock-up, I'm watching from my commentary box window right at the top of the stadium, and I'm watching him hit repeatedly long as he's trying to warm up his forehand in particular. The forehand kept going about 7 to 10 feet long. And I'm thinking, that's a bit weird because none of Djokovic's were going long. And I thought, OK, that suggests to me that he just hasn't got much feel. But I'm also mindful of, it's just the knock-up and then they'll get cracking and so on. But as the match got underway, even though he broke early on and actually it felt like he really could have run away with that opening set. And he was hitting big shots into safe areas of the court well, he didn't seem to me to have any feel. He kept on hitting drop shots that were going halfway up the net or too long, and therefore for Djokovic to track down. Djokovic, meanwhile, just seemed unable to kind of move with the same degree of fluidity and freedom that certainly we've been used to him being able to do when they played in the Olympics last year or when they played at the Australian Open at the start of this year, even though he was injured in that. He always looked as though, God, this is hard work for me. And he kind of marked our card really in the press conferences that led up to this match, I think. I don't think Alcaraz ever really truly found his touch in quite the way that I think he's been doing all week, and I actually suspect he will do again in the final. But I think playing Djokovic freaks him out, and I think it always has, and I think it always will. And he was on edge, and it was about getting through it. Bottom line is, he won in straight sets, and that's a good day's work for Carlos Alcaraz.
Yeah, I think ever since their first meeting at a Grand Slam, when Alcaraz had those cramps at the French Open, to one degree or another, I think it's been clear that part of Novak Djokovic has kind of taken up residence in Carlos Alcaraz's head, and we've seen that in numerous meetings of theirs, and often Djokovic has been able to get the better of him all the times they played on a hard court before this one. And I think we saw that today, not because of the quality of Novak Djokovic's tennis. There were times in that second set where he played pretty well, I thought, and had he been playing someone other than Carlos Alcaraz, he might have been made to look better today, Novak Djokovic. But just the sheer fact that he's Novak Djokovic, I think, does still freak Carlos Alcaraz out a little bit. He basically said as much in the press conference. You're playing the guy who's achieved all of that. And Alcaraz was just, as David described there, just didn't have his feel, didn't have his usual control of the ball. I thought he was making bad decisions. Like, he kept trying to go back behind Djokovic rather than just ripping the ball into the open space. And if he kept doing that, Djokovic couldn't catch up with it because he was slow. He didn't really have it in his movement today, Djokovic, because of this accumulation of matches. So because of all that, the first two sets were reasonably competitive. You know, in fact, Djokovic went up a break in the second set, right at the start of it. But Djokovic was not the dangerous player that he was against Alcaraz in Australia, for example. You know, he wasn't timing the ball as sweetly, he wasn't moving as well, and therefore Alcaraz didn't have to play as well to get back into it. And it was kind of a nothing match, actually. I was hyped for it because there was just that sense of what if Novak Djokovic can do it again against Carlos Alcaraz, and that didn't happen. But equally, we didn't really see the heights of Carlos Alcaraz either, so it did fall a little bit flat to me, really, this one.
Yeah, I agree with both of you that this was by far Carlos Alcaraz's least good performance of the tournament, but nothing about it really. I wasn't worried about him in the way that I have been when he's played Djokovic previously. I didn't feel like this was him just not showing up or freaking out to the extent that he just wasn't himself out there. Absolutely, his touch wasn't there, and that is a tell, isn't it, for nerves. But I didn't have my heart in my mouth when he went to hit ground strokes, which at times with Carlos Alcaraz I have done, and certainly against Novak Djokovic. I just felt like the tone for this match was set by how early in it Novak Djokovic looked old and tired. Like, everybody was expecting him to struggle if it went long and became physical. But murmurs started going around the press room sort of first half of the first set, few games in, about Djokovic just so clearly looking old. You know, everything about this draw was as favourable as it could have been for Djokovic. Maximum rest time before this match, the 2 days off. Alcaraz, the preferred of the two semi-final opponents out of Alcaraz and Sinner. He had the extra day off right at the start of the tournament as well. And he looked so far off it physically in the first set that it just felt like, oh, well, how can this possibly be a match? Like, Alcaraz is playing at 60% and Djokovic is giving 110, and they're about the same level. Even when Djokovic went 3-love up in the second set, didn't feel like jeopardy to me personally. It looked like Djokovic was hanging on and trying to pull rabbits out of hats, and honestly, like, he didn't really deep down believe this time. Like, he was trying his heart out and trying to convince himself he believed, but as Vicky said on his group chat, it wasn't reaching his eyes. Like, I just didn't believe him this time.
Yeah, I think he was searching all the way through the match, and I still wonder what would have happened had he managed to snag that second set for both of them. Because if he'd have won that, I don't think Alcaraz was too far away from really freaking himself out in as it went along the way he did in Australia. But he kept it the right side. I felt like there was a professionalism about him, that he knew he wasn't playing that well and he wasn't feeling it that much, so he was going to big spaces in most of the rallies. I don't think he was taking quite the chances that he has in the past. And he kind of made it physical. He knew what was going on down the other end, and he made it physical. That's a really good professional play. But at the same time, you know, I could see the potential for it becoming messy for him, and then maybe Djokovic gets the crowd and gets the adrenaline. But
the thing is, he did get the crowd and the adrenaline in that second set, and it wasn't enough.
But he didn't win the set. That's the thing. But
he had it. He had it there too. He was a break up. He's 3-love up. The crowd are going for him. He's loving it. He's riling them up, and that wasn't enough. Alcaraz wasn't playing well. He was in his head. None of it was enough.
No, it wasn't in the end. You're right.
So he's in this utterly bizarre nether zone Djokovic of being so clearly the third best player in the world. That is all 4 major semi-finals, but he hasn't won a set in any of them, and most of it's been quite uncompetitive. Obviously Australia, he retired. Paris was competitive but straight sets, and these other 2 haven't really been competitive. So
it is really weird, isn't it? I mean, how much Taylor Fritz and Alexander Zverev and all these others feel.
There's so many layers to this, how it reflects on the rest of men's tennis.
Yeah.
You know, what Djokovic is supposed to do, because you can't walk away from a career when you're reliably reaching Grand Slam semi-finals and you're so clearly the third best player in the world. And yet, I totally understand why that's not enough for him, not enough to get him out of bed every day and do what he has to do to his body to get himself in this position. What a strange place he's in.
It's bizarre. I've never experienced anything like this in my time following the sport, I don't think. You say it's not enough for him, though. It strikes me that he's slightly shifted what he's getting meaning out of, because all of his career and all of our analysis has always been Novak Djokovic is in it to win, and he was kind of saying today in the press conference that he's accepted that he's not going to beat Sinner and Alcaraz over the best of 5, particularly at the latter stages of tournaments where he's built up little niggles and injuries, and he's just not going in with 5 best of 5 set matches in his legs. He's not going into matches against them at 100%, and we saw that, at Wimbledon, and we saw it today. Like, he just can't give his all, and it ends up being pretty one-sided against him. But he seemed to be suggesting that he's getting quite a lot of meaning out of doing what he's doing to the rest of the tour, and getting some love from the crowd and getting appreciation. Look, it wasn't on the level that it was in Paris today, but I think he took something from it. And the problem there, though, I think, is that it's more likely that the others catch up to him.
But he's not going to get better, is he?
Or he falls back to them, perhaps is a better way of putting it, then he catches up to Sinner and Alcaraz. So I don't actually think there's that long that he's going to be in this nether zone. I think he's going to come back to the Fritzes and the Zverevs and the Drapers and the Mazzetti, that group of players who are so clearly currently just below him. I don't know how much longer he's going to be in a state where he can get through to the semi-finals of every single Grand Slam. I think he's going to have to adjust his goals maybe away from the Grand Slams, and that's a weird thing to say. He wants to keep playing the Grand Slams.
He intimated that, though, didn't he?
Yeah.
He suggested it. He was talking about best of 3 and the tour, and maybe that's where he can get some wins over Sinner and Alcaraz and maybe pick up some titles as well.
Yeah, I thought this was a huge shift in his press conference, actually. This is the guy that has made it extremely clear that he gives zero shits about any of tennis apart from the Grand Slams, and I totally get that at his stage of life and career. He's only been playing those other events for the last few years as means to an end, the end being hoped for success at Grand Slams.
And he's taken different approaches before each slam this year. US Open, he comes in not having played. He still ends up physically compromised at the end. Australian Open, he played a warm-up event a couple of weeks before, still ended up physically compromised. Paris, he played the week before, still ended up... Okay, he was probably the strongest in Paris, actually. That was probably his best major this year, but none of the approaches to the rest of the tour has worked for his Grand Slam form.
That's such a good point. And I think we all assumed that once he reached this realisation or point at which he thought 25 is impossible, that would be it. What's sustaining him is the belief that just maybe that's possible. Where he pretty much said today, I don't think it is possible. While Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz are still there, he said, I can't beat them over best of 5 sets. And he started talking exactly as you said, Matt, about He said, I'm not giving up on majors. He said he intends to play them all last year, but he basically said the love of the crowd is enough. And that's an interesting one, because he's getting the love of the crowd because he's, I'm sure I'll get hate for this, but he's, statistically the greatest male tennis player of all time, and he deserves it. He deserves the appreciation. But he's also getting it because he looks old.
And because he is old.
And he is old, and he's an underdog, and all the things we've been talking about all year with him. Like, it's a weird tension there between he's going out there and trying his hardest, and he wants to win, but actually it's being so far away from winning that's getting him the love that actually might be what he wants more than the win. And that is fascinating. You've said it all along, David, but it is fascinating if he's choosing that validation and that love. If that can fill the gap of winning, that's quite something.
It's temporary, as you said, and I do think there's a pretty good chance that 2026 ends up being his last. And I could imagine him deciding to try to play them all if he feels able. I've said a long time, lap of honour, soak up the love, but also maybe play some best of 3 set tournaments, get some more titles if he can. Maybe he can break that record. What are the numbers?
Well, I came away from the press conference today thinking that will be his goal. It's 109, isn't it, the record?
I don't think he's going to get that. I think that's.
But he can strive to get that.
I think he can beat Federer's. I don't think he can beat.
Is that enough? Federer's 103?
Yeah.
I think that'd be quite nice for him.
Yeah.
Do you think it's enough to get one over on Federer for him?
9 more titles for Djokovic, I think is a crazy number.
He's the 3rd best player in the world, though. He can if he picks right.
Yeah, I know, but
you'd have to literally avoid Sinner.
He says all this about best of 3. He says it, and I do believe him, because I believe that's where he thinks he might be able to get the odd win over Alcaraz and Sinner. He's putting his losses down to physicality. When push comes to shove, I'm just not sure he is all that into playing best of 3 tournaments. Like, a lot of them are over 2 weeks. He's made his case pretty clear that he doesn't really fancy playing those. I think he can pick some off and potentially get over Federer's number.
What's he on now?
He's on 100, right?
100, right, so 3 behind.
But I remember when Federer got to 103, and I was presenting for Amazon at the time, and we did a big feature on it. I think it must have been Indian Wells time, 2018, 2019, something like that. And I remember all of the pundits predicting that he would break Connor's record. And of course, that's recency bias, and you don't know what's lurking around the corner and all the rest of it. I'm not going in on them for predicting that, but that felt achievable for him at the time. I'm looking at the ATP calendar here. I can pick out some events for Novak Djokovic where he can.
Well, he's picked out Athens, which
he's got
actually news to me that's on the
He's
calendar.
got Athens on the books. I'm backing him there. Montpellier, end of January.
Going to Montpellier at the end of
if he sets that as his goal.
I just can't believe he cares enough.
Bucharest.
I don't think he cares. I think I could imagine him wanting to get ahead of Federer. I'm sure he'd love that. But I don't think look, he's already won 24 majors. He's won more Masters 1000s than anybody ever has. He's been world number 1 for longer than anybody ever has.
Almaty.
I just think he's got an opportunity here to kind of go out on his terms in 2026.
I just think a year-long goodbye tour just being sustained by the crowd cheering for him is a long time.
I don't think it would just be there, because I think he would be competitive. He talked about today, the second set, he enjoyed competing with Alcaraz and pushing him. And I just think it becomes a little easier if you set yourself an end point where you can just throw yourself at it, know that you haven't got to do it the next year, and talk to your kids, tell them, look, no, I'm not here this week, but you can come with me and we'll go for it and have a great time.
It is interesting how we've come full circle on Djokovic, isn't it? When he came through for so long he was number 3. And then he pushed through that, overtook Federer, overtook Nadal, had a period where he was just on his own as the man. You know, that 2023 season, I know Alcaraz was pushing him and beat him in a Wimbledon final, but finally it was like Federer's gone, Nadal was injured, it was his time. And now at the end of his career, he's back to being 3 again. Like he's kind
going
of
to
a full
bookend his career
moment.
with third wheeling.
He even said, I'm used to this.
God, it's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, he's lost in straight sets today, and here we are, can't stop talking about him.
And the other thing as well that I picked up today is that his tie-break record, he's got a negative tie-break record for the season, and he's got a really poor tie-break record in the majors, 3-8 now. You know, and you think, you know, last few years that's been his calling card, you know, like that element has declined as well. You know, I think he's not quite the guy in the big moments that he was. Okay, he is in the first few rounds, but you know, even today he's got the level to get it to a second set tie break, but then kind of Alcaraz took over, and we've seen Sinner do similar to him as well. So, and I think there's also the injury question. Like, I know he's fit enough to play these slams, and then suddenly he's running into physical issues in the semi-finals. But what if he gets a more serious injury? You know, if he wants to chase title, he's going to have to play more. That risk increases.
He could easily have a Federer moment where actually something goes, and that's that. You know,
yeah,
the age he is particularly.
What about Carlos Alcaraz here? How much does this performance today shake your sort of confidence in this new professional, dialed-in, consistent, reliable Carlos Alcaraz?
I did think he would perform better than he did today, and it seems a bit harsh given he's just won in straight sets. I thought he would play better, but then now that he hasn't, and given what I was noticing about the lack of feel, and given who he was against, I'm not that surprised, actually, in hindsight. So it doesn't shake it, because I think that he now wipes that slate clean. There's a slightly different pressure because it's Sinner next, and the last time he played him, he lost to him. I personally think he will be ravenous, and he has been all tournament long, and I think now he's managed to take care of Djokovic, which is the real one that's, to me, more in his head. I think now he can come out and be free. And also, like I said, he got the job done. Even though he's going to have bad days. Players have bad days. Sinner's had a couple this tournament, relatively speaking, and he's still got the job done. That's what sets these players apart now to maybe what they were doing in the past. Certainly Alcaraz, when in the past he would lose to players like Medvedev, and he would obviously Botic last year, but there have been others, and doesn't feel like those sort of things are happening at all and are going to happen. So I'm feel very bullish about him.
Matt?
I think similar to David, I think I can put today's performance down to the Djokovic factor. I think throwing it forward to Sinner, which I know, you know, I'm sure we'll do in more depth later, and, you know, tomorrow as well, but just on this specific point, it's funny because I think the narrative over the last year or so has been Alcaraz shows up against Jannik Sinner. You know, he had that streak of winning a load of matches against him. I do think Sinner's outplayed him in 2 Grand Slam finals this summer. Now, Alcaraz sprinkled stardust on that Roland Garros final and won it back and pulled off an absolute miracle there and ended up winning it. He's capable of doing that. But it did seem in the Wimbledon final, and I know Hannah is very big on this, it did seem like maybe Sinner was a little bit again in Alcaraz's head then, you know, when Alcaraz was talking about, I can't beat him from the baseline, I can't beat him from the baseline. That was very visible and obvious during that Wimbledon final. But I don't think he has the same freak out against Sinner that he's had against Djokovic. I think he's going to show up. I think he's going to bring it. I think he's going to play well, and I'm not thinking that he loses to Sinner because he has a really bad day and he doesn't have feel and his mind's going all over the place. If he loses, I think it'll be because Sinner outplays him rather than because he doesn't show up. But I've actually shifted my feel on the final a little bit as this tournament's gone on. I was Sinner at the start of the tournament. I've started to go towards Alcaraz, and today hasn't actually shaken that feeling.
Does that have anything to do with Alcaraz disclosing that he's got big hair plans for the scenario where he wins this title?
Haven't we all, Carlos?
Well, exactly.
It's
A
just
kindred
we have
spirit.
the same hair plan.
Well, see, this is it. So he disclosed in press today that... So I think the question he was asked was, will you keep the hair if you win the US Open? And the answer was... oh, no, I've got something new planned for the hair if I win the US Open. And everybody was sort of looking at him like, there's nowhere to go from here, Carlos. What? It's a wig? Like, what are we doing? And then Matt pointed out, colour. Bleach is where you can go from here, because Matt's obviously got bleach on the brain. So imagine...
maybe he's an Amanda Anisimova lad as well.
Imagine if Matt and Carlos take the plunge in the same weekend.
Maybe he's got his own backhand list.
Maybe he'll bring Victor out and he can...
Yeah, we can double up.
Yeah. Another come and get me plea, tonight's podcast. Victor the barber.
I think we've got more chance with it.
Yeah, it's not going well with Bruce, folks. Okay, well, I feel like we can't go much further down the Alcaraz road and kind of talking about the final and Matt and Carlos going blonde together before we talk about the second semi-final. So that's it for part one. We'll be back in part two to talk about Jannik Sinner and Felix Auger-Aliassime. But before that, we want to take a moment to throw forward to next year for anybody thinking of taking a big tennis trip in 2026, which is us.
Yes.
Highly recommend. Friends of the Tennis Podcast get an otherwise ad-free version of the Tennis Podcast, as you know, but we do reserve the right to mention the offerings of our long-time sponsors, and Steve Fergal's International Tennis Tours has supported us, this show, for several years, and we're very grateful for that. They provide packages at all of the world's biggest tennis events, and they really don't come any bigger than Wimbledon.
That is true.
There's this tournament. It's called Wimbledon. It is the most prestigious, historic and meaningful event on the tennis calendar for a reason. It truly is a bucket list destination for any sports fan. We can all vouch for that. And I really can't imagine anyone regretting a trip to SW19 unless you get drilling in your hotel room at 9 a.m.
Doesn't happen there.
But I'm pretty sure that Steve Fergal makes sure that doesn't happen. They can sort out debenture tickets for the tennis, along with debenture lounge access, premium hotel accommodations, no drilling, and also private transportation. Plus, there's the option to really max out on the experience with a luxury yacht trip through Croatia.
Oh, well, now we're talking my language.
Absolutely, sounds great. If it sounds good to you too and you want to check out what Steve Fergal's have to offer, just head to toursfortennis.com/podcast to find out more and book your trip. Welcome back to part two of the Tennis Podcast, where we turn our attention now to the second of the two men's singles semi-finals that we saw under the lights on the Arthur Ashe Stadium tonight. And maybe we all owe Felix Auger-Aliassime a huge apology, because he might have helped to deliver the men's match of the tournament on the Arthur Ashe Stadium tonight. There have been great outside court matches, but I do think this is a contender, albeit not in a particularly crowded field, for the best men's match that Arthur Ashe has seen this fortnight. Beaten by Sinner, Auger-Aliassime 6-1, 3-6, 6-3, 6-4, and it was a great match, David.
It was everything that I have always wanted to see from Felix Auger-Aliassime in the past few years, since he was world number 6 and reaching the semi-finals here 4 years ago and winning the Davis Cup and beating Jannik Sinner 6-1, 6-2 in that match in Madrid, that I'm always thinking about because I just happened to see it. There was hardly anybody in the stadium. It was not on the main stadium court, and I always remember seeing it and thinking, well, why on earth can't you do what he's doing? You're not that different. That's what I always feel like when I line the two of them up next to one another. The same sort of height, the same sort of movement, a huge forehand, both of them, big serve. Okay, miles better backhand that Sinner's got. But why is Sinner so much better now than Felix Auger-Aliassime? It's never really made sense to me. And yet the results tell their own story. One guy is competing for Grand Slam after Grand Slam, and the other guy was 27 in the world. I don't really know what happened to Auger-Aliassime, but this fortnight he has shown that actually, raw materials wise, he has got it. He might not be as good as those two. He's not. Look, he's not. He's not as talented. He doesn't have the feel that they do. He doesn't have the mental strength that they have. And like I say, an inferior backhand, relatively speaking. But he's come into this tournament, he's beaten Zverev handily on the comeback from a set down. Then he's backed that up, which would have been very easy not to do. And then he's come out today, been, I actually think, quite competitive. In a set he lost 6-1 in the first set, and it would have been very, very easy for him to just get dispirited by that. And instead he came roaring back. I think he had the crowd pretty mesmerised by his own movements, his athleticism. He let everything go. You saw his features relax. I love the way that his face was just enjoying it. You know, you could see that he was loving the moment and the competition. And I don't understand why that wouldn't be repeatable in the future, this level of tennis from Felix Auger-Aliassime. I can't believe it's only 2 weeks ago that I had a chat with him about trying to get back to what he did 3 years ago and, you know, what's different. And here he is, he's done exactly that. And huge credit to him. He pushed Sinner today. I think he worried Sinner. I think something physically was going on with Sinner as well. He went for a medical timeout off court. He says that's not going to be a problem. But my word, was he pushed by Auger-Aliassime today.
Do you agree, Matt, that this is the start of something for Felix Auger-Aliassime rather than a blip on the radar?
I hope so. I guess I think so as well, because that level was so good, you know, and as David said, not only beating Zverev but backing it up by beating Rublev and de Minaur, I think showed a real steel to him. And then, you know, there have been, I think I've been a bigger doubter about his top level over the last couple of years. You know, I've just wondered whether this tennis was in there, but my word, he was brilliant. Really, really good. Like, great coming forward, had a lot of success at the net tonight. That forehand, you know, if it's doing that damage to Sinner, it can do damage to anyone, I would say. The backhand, yes, it's the weaker wing, but it held up well enough. He put pressure on with the serve, and he had some swag to him. He had the crowd going, you know, like they were really into this. I went out into the media seats about halfway through the match, and he was roaring and playing with intent and conviction, and the crowd went with him, which was brilliant to see. And the start of that fourth set was probably the most fun I'd had watching a men's match on Ash this tournament. You know, like, he was bringing out the best in Sinner, because I have to give a shout out to a shot that Sinner played to save a break point in that fourth set, where I think it's up there with Alcaraz's behind the back for men's shot of the tournament. It wasn't as fun, it wasn't as extravagant, but it was equally mind-blowing, because the ball was basically behind him and it was on his baseline, and Auger-Aliassime had whacked a forehand down the line, and yet Sinner managed to just sort of bend down and hook it with two hands, the backhand, onto the opposite line, cross court, like the outside of the line, and it was a clean winner to save the break point.
Everybody was looking at it, including Auger-Aliassime, going, well, that's not in, is it?
Yeah, how have you done that? Like, that is not possible. That was past you, and you've hit it for a winner. Like, what? It was extraordinary.
I assumed it was a miss hit, and then you look at it, and it's come right out of the centre of the strings.
Yeah, it was a joke. And there was a series of shots around that time in the match. They were both bringing it. I was having a lot of fun. Yeah, he was to me, you know, you can kind of say, you can look at this and it bears a similar sort of trajectory or resemblance to the Shapovalov match, you know, a few rounds before. To me,
something about those Canadians.
To me, Auger-Aliassime was a more dangerous opponent today. I didn't trust Shapovalov. I actually thought Auger-Aliassime was going to keep bringing it, and it would be up to Sinner to raise his level, and I think he did in the crucial moments. I think he really stepped up, fended off break points, and hit some spectacular shots down the stretch. But it was briefly really under threat today from Auger-Aliassime, and you're right, I owe him an apology. I thought even if he brought his best, he wouldn't be able to hurt Sinner like he did.
Same. So you both think the competitiveness of this match was all about Felix Auger-Aliassime and not about a drop-off from Sinner? Are there any Sinner concerns?
Oh, I think it is twofold.
Yeah.
I don't think it's in isolation, and as I look over your shoulder there, Matt, at a huddle around, I think, Jannik Sinner.
Oh, no, I think it's actually Simone Vagnozzi.
Oh, okay. Can't even see him. There are so many Italian journalists.
I think they're using him to...
Oh, my goodness.
To fill the time before Jannik Sinner comes to press.
Well spotted. But what I noticed was the serves weren't going in.
The serve is the problem.
I didn't see the percentage, but it was not...
53 for the match.
That's too low.
And that has been a bit of an issue all tournament. It's been a bit of an issue this summer, actually, I would say, for Sinner. And when I look at Alcaraz and Sinner matching them up in the final, we know that they can both, you know, extend each other to their limits in rallies and all that kind of thing. And actually, maybe we've reached a phase with the matchup where they're both such good shot makers, they're both such good movers. I think the serve is going to be an absolutely crucial element, and I think Alcaraz is serving better.
And he didn't
right
at
now.
Wimbledon in the final there, did he?
Exactly.
He was way
was
down.
A big difference. And look, maybe we said that going in to the Wimbledon final, you know, that we expected the Alcaraz serve to help him and show up, and it didn't. And it may well not again on Sunday, but based on how they've been serving this tournament, and, you know, with that little ab issue that I know he's played down there, but it's in the back of my mind, and that would affect the serve, I think. That could be a difference maker, and I think Sinner is going to want to get that percentage way up, you know, 10% up on where he currently is.
If I was over there in the huddle with Simone Vagnozzi, and I'm glad I'm not.
As you're Italian.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah. I hate huddles. Huddles.
Oh yeah, they freak me out. David loves them.
I do.
No woman would ever come up with the idea of a huddle.
No.
Because it so favours, like, the bigger and taller and the more space you take up, the better you're going to do in a huddle. Anyway, if I were risking my life over there in that enormous huddle, I would be asking Simone Vagnozzi what on earth Jannik Sinner's obsession is with white towels.
Yes.
That would be my big journalistic question.
There was
what's going on?
Comical moment where he sent for towels, and they came back with a year's supply, and they were all folded up.
These pristine white towels, because they had towels on the court, but they're the US Open towels, you know, which have the big logo on and stuff. He wanted, a bit like me from the hotel laundry, he wanted pristine white towels.
Boy, did he get it.
And he got them, but I didn't know he was such a pristine white towel fanatic. But now I do, and unfortunately I have missed the huddle, so I've missed the chance to ask.
Yes.
I think he's meticulous, isn't he?
I think that is true. These are the things you miss if you're in the media seat, you see, Matt. We were watching on telly.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't have a clue what you were talking about.
I've really missed out.
It's.
I thought I had quite a good sense of the match, but I've missed out on the towels.
But you missed Simone Vagnozzi stalking. He had to sort of stalk his way down to court level with this pile of towels.
I'm sure the internet will help.
Yeah,
me out.
I think the internet's got you. That's the final of all 4 slams in 2025 for Jannik Sinner. That's pretty badass.
And you know, the fact that almost at the first time of asking in their real rivalry, Sinner and Alcaraz are playing each other in the final. When you think of the decade and a half that Nadal and Federer spent missing one another.
And yeah, this is it. This is uncharted territory. It's the first time in the Open era that 3 men, we had this stat on the start of the tournament, didn't we, that 3 men have played 3 slams against each other in the same season. None of the big 3 combinations managed it. Even, as you said, when Federer and Nadal had a grip on the sport, they were so clearly 1 and 2 in 2005, 6, 7, 8. They didn't manage it. There was a deficiency for one of them. It was at that time, it was often Nadal here, wasn't it, that not getting to the US Open final. But so quickly we've gone from a year ago, Alcaraz and Sinner hadn't played a Grand Slam final against each other. Now they've played 3 in a row. It feels like, how are they not going to play all the Grand Slam finals against each other for the next 5 years? They won't. Things will happen, but it's so hard to see it right now.
But it is interesting as well that because at the moment there isn't that third player, this could keep on happening. This could be Chris Everton, Martina Navratilova stuff. This rivalry.
That is incredible, isn't it? All 4, just for Sinner individually, the final of all 4 slams in a year that he served a ban. Maybe it's because, not in spite of, or not entirely because, but
yeah, it's been somewhat helpful for him to have.
But it is still
the rest
pretty
when he did have it.
Remarkable.
Yeah, the company he's in is Laver, Federer, Djokovic, and Sinner on the men's side.
Not even Nadal. Okay, well, you can give me early predictions for that final if you want, but you don't have to. And if you do give them, you have the right. You've got 24 hours to change your mind.
I'm going to give myself 24 hours to have a good think about it. I did pick Alcaraz at the start of the tournament, and I do think he's been fantastic all the way through. A little bit shakier today, even though he won in straight sets against the great Novak Djokovic. But I'm just gonna give myself 24 hours to have a think and watch some highlights of those great matches from the past. Maybe we'll see that 2022 match here
that I missed, like Giri.
Let's get it on so that we can.
Absolutely. I don't need any encouragement. Matt.
Well, I hinted at it that I've moved towards Alcaraz over the course of this tournament. I think, given what I saw in their Grand Slam finals and given the general hard court record that Sinner's had, I felt like Sinner was going to win this at the outset of this tournament. The serve, as I've talked about, is an element where I think Alcaraz had the edge this tournament. Yeah, I'm just a little bit more convinced by Alcaraz, I suppose. I just think he's playing closer to his absolute best, maybe. And as David's been talking about, given he lost the last one, I think he's going to be desperate to win this one. Maybe the Alcaraz magic's going to be back on Sunday, I suppose, is kind of what I'm thinking. At the moment, that's where I'm at. But maybe I'll have swung back to Sinner in 24 hours' time. It's tight. It's kind of this thing where you've got this real, 6 rounds of the men's draw feel like we know what's going to happen in terms of Alcaraz and Sinner are going to be there. The big picture is not that fun at the moment, but if you do get the payoff and you get Sinner and Alcaraz in the final, it's the most fun. It's on a knife edge. We know they match up well. It's this
Is
weird
the payoff
place.
worth it for you?
At the moment, yes. At the moment, we're young enough into this rivalry, and we had Paris. I've still got the memories of Paris. How can I have watched that and say, oh, it's not worth it? Because that was literally one of the best things I've ever been at in my life. Like, it was extraordinary, and the prospect that it might happen again or something close to it might happen again at this stage is enough for me. Ask me in a year's time if they've played...
I will be doing just that, yeah.
You know, if they've played all of them and I'm waiting for other guys to step up, you might start to tire of it. But right now, and also I look at these slams as a big picture, and the women's draw offers so much of what the men's draw doesn't. You know, jeopardy throughout, and I can get a lot of pleasure from just that element of it. You know, like, if I was only a watcher of men's tennis, sure, I might be a bit bored through 2 weeks, but I'm not.
I do remember when I was very young that I used to find the rivalry of Everton and Navratilova, and I only really saw Wimbledon, but I saw several finals in a row between the two of them. I used to find the tournament a bit boring until they would meet, because they would beat everybody so one-sidedly. I mean, it was different to what we're seeing now. Right now, I mean, to me, it's up to the rest. I don't want these two to just fall over and then somebody else to come through or something like that. I want somebody else exciting to gate crash. That's what you want long term. Otherwise, let them get on with it. They're such a wonderfully diverse rivalry. They're so different to one another. They bring such unknown and unpredictability to what actually ends up happening when they do meet, that I always feel like, well, okay, if there are no shocks and you end up with those two, jobs are good.
You feel differently, Catherine?
I feel the same way as you, Matt, that because I watch equal, you know, because I'm seeing the sport, I take an holistic approach, to quote Amelie Mauresmo, to the sport, and I've got men's and women's that I can get from the women's tournament what I'm lacking in almost all of the men's, apart from the final. But just taking the men's in isolation, look, I love Sinner Alcaraz. It's absolutely nothing to do with me not loving that as much as you two, or as much as anybody. Like, I live for it. But how many matches are there in a Grand Slam?
Quite a few. It's a long wait.
Hundreds. I don't think it's a great state of affairs at the moment. The whole tournament being about one match. Grand Slam quarterfinals everywhere apart from Wimbledon. This is such a sort of enlightening, eye-opening moment when Matt pointed out this element of it all. They're the only singles match happening at the time that they are happening. There's nowhere else to look. If they're a dud, you kind of start watching them, and there's a lot of duds.
Yeah. I still think that had he not suffered a stress fracture his back, that Artur Fils would be edging his way to gate crash in the party.
People are suffering that sort of injury because there's too much tennis.
Yeah, definitely.
And, you know, we're potentially... Yeah, that's a whole other discussion, but...
Get well soon, Artur. Come on, get in there!
Do you actually think that Artur could be the great gate crasher?
Yeah. I don't think he's as good as them yet, certainly not yet, and may not be potentially, but I actually just look at his physicality and his ground strokes and his serve and think, wow, he can live with them. You know, he's got the way he played Alcaraz so close in Monte Carlo, should have beaten him that day. I know he got heavily beaten in Barcelona when they met shortly afterwards, but just... Yeah, I think that if he could get himself back fully fit and get back to where he was and then move on again, I do think he could.
Well, that would be fun and very welcome.
I mean, not all the time. You know, he's not going to suddenly start sharing the Grand Slams out with them, but I think he could do a Del Potro, or he could do a Wawrinka.
Okay, would be here for that. David, you get another 24 hours before your prediction. Matt, you have the right to change your mind. That's it for part 2, but do join us in part 3 for a few other results from day 13 and a look ahead to Matt's big day in New York tomorrow. Welcome back to part 3 of the tennis podcast, where just before we get on to our big predictions for tomorrow's women's singles final, a few other results from today here at Flushing Meadows. The women's doubles title was won by the Canadian-Kiwi duo of Gabby Dabrowski and Erin Routliffe, 6-4, 6-4 over Katerina Siniakova and Taylor Townsend. It's the second US Open doubles title they have won as a pair, and an incredible journey they have been on. Obviously, Gabby Dabrowski in particular, having, this time a year ago, she was undergoing treatment for cancer. Like, this is the most wonderful, uplifting comeback story. And they are, in the words of Matt Roberts, quite a pair, Dabrowski and Routliffe. And Gabby Dabrowski in particular, what a player.
Yeah, I've always thought she was good. She really is a brilliant doubles player, and I think these two complement each other really, really well. Routliffe's got a bit of a funny serve, but quite a big serve. Dabrowski's got great reactions at the net. Routliffe's really solid at the net. Like, they're just a really, really strong pair. And any doubles team that beats Siniakova and partner, let alone Siniakova and Townsend, you've got to be a very strong pair to beat them. I think this tournament was a lot for Taylor Townsend. I think
Yeah, she came to press drinking a honey juice, didn't she?
Right. Which I loved.
Yeah.
But I think maybe did point to just maybe ran out of gas a little bit. Like, it looked like this was going to be more one-sided. They were 6-4, 3-love up, Dabrowski and Routliffe, and then Townsend and Siniakova had a bit of a surge, got back into it. Great crowd on Ash, really, really good to see that. But they just couldn't quite complete the comeback, and Dabrowski and Routliffe deserving winners, I think.
Townsend was incredibly generous about Dabrowski and Routliffe, but she also said the shadow was a problem for her today. She said the shadow made it hard to pick up the ball coming from certain directions, and it was very quick adjustments that we had to make when we changed sides. Say it, Taylor.
Yep.
The women's wheelchair doubles was won by the third-seeded Chinese pair of Zhaohui Li and Zhiying Wang. They beat Dida de Rout and Zhu Zhenzhen 6-4, 7-6. Any victory over Dida de Rout is very impressive, although she's improved. She's on the comeback trail, isn't she, from surgery, de Rout, but very impressive for the Chinese pair. The men's wheelchair doubles title was won by Gustave Fernandez and Takito Oda over Alfie Hewitt and Gordon Reed, 6-1, 2-6, 10-6. Poor old Alfie Hewitt, just seeing Takito Oda at the other end of the court in these finals is just absolutely brutal for him, isn't it? And the quad wheelchair doubles final was won by Guy Sasson and Niels Vink, 6-1, 6-1 over the unseeded pairing of Chilean Francisco Keuleff and Argentinian Gonzalo Enrique Lazarte. So an incredible tournament for that unseeded pair, but Sasson and Vink the eventual champions. Tomorrow we have arrived at day 14 of the US Open 2025. Saturday, the 6th of September, we start with the men's doubles final. Marcel Granollers and Horacio Zeballos against Joe Salisbury and Neil Skubsky. And then, not before 4 p.m, the women's singles final. Aryna Sabalenka or Amanda Anisimova. David, your prediction, please.
Oh, dear. He's looking at me right now. I mean, look, I do love matches between these two over the rivalry. I enjoy the way that Sabalenka, she knows no other way than to bring it and attack an opponent. But Anisimova is that rare player that can counter-attack and actually deflect it and make it worse for Sabalenka that she's attacking. So absolutely fascinated by it. I remember the match they played at the French Open, and that was Sabalenka, despite a sort of brief period of of response and resurgence from Anisimova. And then, of course, the Wimbledon semi-final, which I always felt that Anisimova was going to get the better of. That one I did feel that I remember, I think I was commentating on it, or I certainly watched all of it, and she always felt like she was the better player in that match. This one, with all the build-up that Anisimova's just had, and the long matches that I do think will have taken a little bit out of her, and so forth, I think she'll still play it and push her really close and have her moments, but I feel Sabalenka's going to get the job done in 3.
Matt.
Well, obviously you know what I'm what I'm picking. Can I tell you the sort of things I'm thinking about?
Yes, exactly.
If you took the blonde hair out of it, what would you really say?
Now, I think you could describe it, and I was talking about this with Pam earlier, as a little bit of a sort of baggage Grand Slam final. You know, like we've talked a lot about the remarkable job that Amanda Anisimova has done to come back from that double bagel in the Wimbledon final. Like, extraordinary that she's back in the very next Grand Slam final, that she's beaten the opponent, but like it's kind of like she's come back, but has she come all the way back? Because now we're going to see her in a Grand Slam final again. And I know it's not Wimbledon, I know it's not Świątek, but she's got to meet that moment and respond to that moment again, and that is an element here. I think she will, but it's something that you could maybe say is in Sabalenka's favour going into it. The flip side of that is that Sabalenka's got her own Grand Slam final baggage herself, I would say. I know she's won 3 of them, but that whole thing of Sabalenka constantly playing on the edge and teetering, I think, is heightened in these Grand Slam finals, and we've seen it here against Coco Gauff. We've seen it at the French Open against Coco Gauff. To a lesser extent in Australia, I don't think it was because she played badly in that final. I think Madison Keys ripped it from her, but I think Amanda Anisimova can rip it from her as well. So maybe that kind of evens it up. The biggest thing, I think, in Sabalenka's favour is the potential fatigue that Anisimova is going to be feeling. Physically, emotionally, mentally, from the last few days, which I think have been an extraordinary effort to beat Świątek and then to come back and beat Osaka, you know, at 1 o'clock in the morning last night. Is that going to take its toll? She talked about feeling exhausted in that Wimbledon final off the back of the semi-final. Hopefully they've learnt as a team and they've got, you know, a different approach and all that kind of thing. And again, I'm banking on that happening because my pick is Amanda Anisimova in 3 sets. Sabalenka's not lost in straight sets at a slam since the COVID US Open. She played over 100 matches at slams in that time and not lost in straight sets. She always wins a set. Now, you know, that stat will probably be broken at some point, but I don't really feel like it's going to be here. I think if Anisimova is going to do it, it's going to be giving every last drop of what she has in a 3rd set, and I think those ground strokes are going to come on strong and get her over the line, and she's going to win her first Grand Slam title. That's my prediction. My entirely rational, logical prediction.
Matt's planning to get a haircut tomorrow morning.
Well,
Can I disclose that to the people?
I was planning that, but we've got a lovely bagels appointment.
Yeah, we've got a dog and bagels appointment.
All round Matt Futterman's.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, it's not... We can't miss that. We want to go to that. The haircut would require getting up early. We were woken up this morning by drilling, as you've described.
Auger-Aliassime
There's a lot
extended
of
our evening longer than...
There's a lot of factors from when I had planned the haircut. So maybe we're just going to do it all in one go.
Okay.
But just to be clear...
Haircut and then dye all in one go.
So absolutely categoric. If Amanda Anisimova wins the US Open tomorrow night, you are dyeing your hair blonde in tribute to the fact that Anisimova
Is not blonde.
Is not blonde. It's on record. It's on a podcast. It's got to happen.
It's been on record for a while. I'm not going to go back on it.
I know where all the hair salons are in Midtown Manhattan now after some Googling.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be so great. Wow.
What's your prediction?
I am genuinely leaning towards Anisimova. I know I was at Wimbledon, and that is... well, maybe not leaning towards, but I gave her a good chance at Wimbledon. I actually can't remember what I predicted, but I certainly didn't predict love and love to Sabalenka. But I just feel so differently about Anisimova now, in a way that makes me realise how much I didn't give enough weight to the sort of, being the first Wimbledon final and recovery and exhaustion and all of that. I'm giving significantly less weight to all of that this time, because she's been there and because of how positively she has channeled all those experiences and turned them into strength. All we've seen from Anisimova is evidence of how everything that she went through at Wimbledon has made her better and more resilient and more able to cope with these things. So yes, I do have a worry and a question mark about how late it went last night and how physical it was. Just the getting to bed late. Like, all jokes aside, we went through all of that, and we're hoping to bounce back strong tomorrow, but today's been tough.
And we don't have to run about.
Right, and today's not sort of a crucial day in our preparations for a Grand Slam final, so I'm not giving no weight to that. I just think that, having been through something so similar at Wimbledon, she's going to find a way to metabolise all of that, and I back her tennis.
Well, and she likes the Sabalenka ball.
Yeah.
She'd never experienced the Swiatek ball, and she ended up hating it in that environment. She just could never get going at all. And she's not going to have those sort of balls to chase, I don't think. Not the same types.
It was a double unknown, wasn't it, in the Wimbledon final? It was the first Grand Slam final and first time facing Swiatek. Now, it's first US Open final, but she's been in a Grand Slam final. She's faced Sabalenka. She's beaten her. There's
winning record.
Right. There's just a lot more reason to believe. If you see what I did there.
See what you've done there.
What have you done there?
I've named a Bruce Springsteen song.
Have you?
Hoping for glory days.
Oh my God. Even I know that one.
On that note, hello to our mascots, Phoebe, Maisie and Roger. Hello to our top folks and executive producers, Greg, Chris and Jeff. Should we have some shout-outs, Matt?
Yes, I think we should, considering
we don't have a bus to run for.
No, and we've been, we haven't done shout-outs for a few days, so let's bring them back. We have Sam Woodside from Christchurch, New Zealand. We know Sam.
All right, Sam.
We've met Sam in Melbourne.
Yes, we have.
Did Sam buy us drinks? Maybe. Thank you, Sam, if you did.
He certainly attended our Melbourne live show.
Aww.
And he watched 10 minutes of the best player in the world with David on court 1573.
What an experience.
I remember Sam. Yeah, he was wearing a Tennis Podcast T-shirt, and Mahatch was playing again.
Was it the Opelka match?
No, it wasn't the Opelka match. He was playing Sumit Nagal.
It was Sumit Nagal.
And I went and got...
You went and sat with all the Sumit Nagal
Yes,
fans.
I did. I got some amazing seats right on the front row with them. It was fun.
It's
fun.
Good on those medium-sized courts in Australia, isn't it? That is a great thing about Australia. Oh, Australia. Sam, thank you for whetting my appetite for the next Grand Slam.
Cheers, Sam.
We've also got Stephen Wright.
Hello, Stephen.
All right, Stephen.
Stephen completed the Fan Slam at the 2023 Australian Open finals. Stephen says, I saw the Avengers superhero matchup of Sabalenka-Rybakina.
Wow.
That was a heck of a match.
Great match.
That was
God,
very
that
cool.
was good.
And Stephen also says, I will be first in line if and when Hannah writes an adventure novel. It would be so laugh out loud and not put downable.
Anything Hannah writes is laugh out loud and not put downable.
Exactly.
Just seeing that we got a WhatsApp from Hannah, my pulse races a bit. Like, oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah, so true.
Stephen, with a V or a PH?
With a PH, like my middle name.
Like Matthew
Harry
Stephen. I knew it was posh. I just couldn't remember.
It's definitely posh.
Matthew Harry Stephen Roberts. There you go.
Like Stephen Shaw, a British tennis player from the 80s.
There we go. Thank you, Stephen.
And finally, we have George Blomfelt from Brisbane.
Right,
Hello,
George.
George.
George says, my partner Eliza got me onto the tennis podcast.
Well done, Eliza.
We frequently have tennis battles where she usually beats me 6-3. Very
What a specific scoreline.
Single break, that's enough. Serve it out.
It's very Pete Sampras.
Yeah.
Oh, and George says, I think she's met some of the crew at the Australian Open with her friend Maddie. I've met Eliza and Maddie, definitely.
Oh.
I think outside an Amanda Anisimova match, in
Well,
fact.
chances are quite good.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Tennis Georges.
Yeah, I'm sorry. If it's not clear, I'm
George
struggling with...
Lofhagen.
Oh, my word, Matt Roberts.
It's going to be a good day
Wow.
tomorrow.
Oh my God, I got another one.
He's going
George
Bob.
Bastel.
George.
Very good.
Check you
Ended the
two out.
Wimbledon career of Pete Sampras.
Yes.
I probably should have come up with that before Lofhagen.
I don't know. One of them's active.
George and Eliza. That's lovely stuff. Thank you. Love Brisbane. Thank you to all of our friends of the Tennis Podcast. If you'd like to become a friend, as always, the link is in our show notes, as is the link to subscribe to the newsletter, get access to Matt's stat. David made a slightly odd noise when he was reading your stat in the draft
it's so
newsletter.
good. Sign up to the newsletter if you haven't already.
Next to me.
Every day Matt comes up with a new stat. I mean, we produce like 100 newsletters a year and he always has a new stat. I don't know how.
It is incredible stuff. Link in the show notes, folks. We are part of the Athletic Podcast Network. We'll be back tomorrow and you won't want to miss it. We'll speak to you then.